kind of see flashbacks of what could have happened. And, I don't know how to describe this.
Well, they do the coloring is great here with the flashback, because it doesn't say there was a flashback, but it's these detectives going over the possibility of what they imagine happened. So they talk, the door was broken into. Someone must have been pretty strong to break the lock because the chain was on. And if the chain was on, then someone must have been inside. And the guy who was inside was big and strong. So they go kind of back and forth whether it was one person who broke him down, who's real big and strong, or a group of people. And there's a little bit of morbid humor about, I like the line of, he looked like he was in pretty good shape for his age. What do you mean, apart from being dead? Like that
yeah.
kind of
cop humor.
Cop humor, exactly.
Yeah, it's neat. It's neat penciling here too, because just like these layouts are just great. Like they're almost like each panel is almost like a painting that has the right amount of stuff in one corner, the right amount of stuff in the corner, and then like nothing's split down the middle. So like everything is juxtaposition. So it looks like paintings. They look like fabulous, like high-end art.
Yeah, and there's lots of little details and little symbols. So like the guy who got killed, he had this pin on his chest that's a yellow smiley face. And that was the smiley face you see in the very first panel in the blood, with a little bit of blood on it in the gutter. And now it's on his, and now when they do the flashback, they show the guy who died with the pin on his bathrobe for some reason. Wow, he decided to put a pin on his bathrobe. And then whoever broke in, you just see their arm. So it shows the action, but it doesn't give anything away.
Yeah.
And it's got a few just enough symbols where it's a small thing, but if you watch it panel by panel, you can pick up on a lot more of those things.
Yeah, it's great panel by panel. Oh, and then like he looks beat up. This guy does look tough though, just like the guy mentions, like he does have, some big shoulders, big arms, big legs, and there he goes out the window, and there's that pin.
Yeah,
falling off.
I'm guessing like 6'2", 240, all muscle.
All muscle. And so there he goes out the window, and you see the pin just sort of drift off of flying off of him as he's flying out the window. And it's just great. I mean, there's the crime. Here are the cops, and I think that maybe it's
and they go, was it a burglary, or do we look for some other motive? Was it gangs? I like how the cops do this back and forth of their possibilities, because then it makes you think of all these possibilities, but they don't pin anything down.
But then they also have a little bit of a back and forth about, maybe it's the next paragraph, as they're going down in the elevator. Do we really want to make a big deal out of this?
Yeah, so they start talking about masked Avengers. And so up till now, we have no concept of it being a fantasy book or a reality book or superheroes really at all. But they mention now on page, 10 or 4, the idea of masked Avengers cutting in. And I like in the lettering that they do a little bit of bolding some of the words. It's pretty subtle, but like Masked Avengers is bolded just a little bit more. Right. I don't know. It just gives a little bit of emphasis, and you can kind of follow the pacing of what's important and what they're saying. Something I think it would be cool if I saw it a little bit more, but it's very, very subtle.
And then there's that crazy guy again with the end is nigh.
Yeah.
Walking out of the panel.
So we get, and then they continue talking, and they keep doing the flashbacks of it's all red of the guy getting thrown out the window, but they talk about this the Keene Act, where it gives you just a little bit of reference about, okay, I guess the mass vigilantes, the government did a thing where they weren't allowed anymore, or they were only allowed to work for the government, except
government
for Rorschach.
Except for Rorschach, exactly.
And they give him a little bit of backstory that he fell out of grace with the other vigilantes, but he's still out there somewhere, and he's wanted for 2 counts of murder. So we're like, oh, this guy who at the beginning was our first narrator, he's not, we don't know if he's framed, but he's at least willing to play dirty.
No doubt.
Yeah. Crazier than a snake's armpit.
Crazier than a snake's armpit. And then we meet, well, we don't know who we're meeting here, but I mean, like, if this was the first time I read this, maybe I would be like, who's this guy? Because he is awesome. He's got the classic trench coat, the fedora, and he's got a grappling hook.
He's got like a purple pinstripe suit.
Yeah,
underneath his trench coat, and he pulls out this gun that almost looks like a water pistol at first.
It looks like a ray gun.
Yeah. But then it shoots out a grappling hook, and he climbs up the side of the building. But not in a way that, like, somebody who has superpowers would do. Something more like, it's almost realistic. So I still, at this point, don't know whether it's a fantasy or if they're just masked vigilantes like a Batman. Mm-hmm. Which I love.
This is great stuff. I'm just looking at. I got lost in this. This is a completely silent page of him just contemplating this building. He picks up
one of my favorite things in a comic is when there's a whole page that's silent, but it still progresses the story.
Yeah, and so he actually is picking up
if he's
clues.
By himself, why would he talk?
Yeah. But he's picking up clues, and he picks up the smiley face pin from the gutter. And then he grapples his way up the side of the building, and he's doing his own investigation.
Mm-hmm. And he finds something that the cops missed in the guy's closet. He sees a little button in the top corner, and it reveals, what do you call it? Like a secret compartment.
And the secret compartment,
the false back of the closet.
He does a cool thing too. He does a cool little detective thing. You'd probably see this in a movie or something. But he makes a measuring device out of a hanger, out of a coat hanger, and he can tell, like, oh, this closet doesn't match this wall. So what's back here? And he knows. He's too good. And and then we see his face.
That's it, which is a great visual thing. You don't need to say it. You can just see, oh, he measures a coat hanger. The bump on the coat hanger is shorter on the inside than on the outside.
Yeah.
So you can follow his thought process.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, it's just, but then, maybe you don't really see his face until he pries open that door, and then we see his face. And what the heck's going on with his face?
Well, actually, I think when he comes up through the window, you see his face.
Oh, right. Yeah. When he's, yeah, there he is.
And it's like a white mask with like black splotches all over it. And so I know what a Rorschach test is. So to me, that made sense. But I could see otherwise being like, oh, that's kind of a weird thing. And for those of you who've seen the movie, I actually think that was one of the best parts, was how in the movie, his face, the ink blots were constantly changing.
Yeah, so they change here too. Mm-hmm. And he's got ink blots. Just to go back too about his character, about being paranoid. When you're paranoid, you see things that aren't there, and so a Rorschach test is just an ink blot, and they ask you, "What do you see?" So it's not really a dog biting a person. That's what you're projecting onto the image. So it's a perfect costume for someone who's paranoid. Yeah, you gave that some thought. That is, yeah, I didn't go that deep, but that's perfect. Mm-hmm. So he finds the a costume and some guns and some knives and some stuff that leads this guy to believe that this guy is one of the costume, a masked avenger of some sort.
The guy says.
And then he also sees a photograph of this guy in full getup with his old crew. With his old crew,
like a guy with some wings and a guy with like a very generic costume and a lady in an all black dress. Yeah, it's like old school costumes.
Yeah, the old school costumes, like, the brown, like no, nobody would ever make a brown superhero costume. It just seems so not flashy at all.
That's funny. I never even really thought about that.
My page is loading slow here. Oh, there it goes.
So then we get a little bit of a jump, and we have a little bit of a color shift to know that we're in a different setting. And it zooms in on the picture, but then it zooms back out, and we're in a different place that has that same picture in the background. And it's these two guys not in costumes talking. One guy's older, and one guy's kind of younger. And they just finished up talking about how they're retired. So we can kind of assume that they're retired masked vigilantes. I won't say superheroes because we don't know if they have powers or anything. But with all of the stuff in the background, it's kind of enough to give you a hint of these guys are retired vigilantes. And one guy even says, they mentioned the thing in 77, and the older guy says, "You were a better night owl than I ever was." So we can guess that one guy was like the original night owl, and then he passed the mantle down to the younger night owl.
Flash
like
to flash.
Like a Robin type thing. Yeah, flash to flash.
And then for some reason that page isn't loading up for me, but I'm jumping ahead.
Worries.
Now I'm on page 10. And so they wrap up their like Saturday night beer session, and they have a good time talking about it. And the one guy says to the other guy, "Take it easy, walking out there tonight."
Yeah, he's like, this is, they're kind of teasing back and forth. They're like, "I'm the guy who gave a left hook to Captain Axis, remember?" Or it's references to things that you don't know if they're really going to be relevant later, but it's more like establishing their relationship. And when they walk off, you see that he's in like a pretty ghetto-y part of town with like graffiti all over and broken windows and, patchy ground and that kind of stuff. Guys walking around with boom boxes over their shoulder look like they were part of a gang.
Yeah, those guys look like gang members. But then he makes his way back to his apartment, and the door is ajar, and somebody's in the apartment, and
he's eating beans out of a can.
Eating the beans out of the can, and it's Rorschach. Only this time now we see Rorschach's mouth.
Yeah, and it's a little bit stubbly, and it's got bean juice dripping down. And the young night owl guy says, "You want me to heat those up for you?" And Rorschach's like, "No need, fine like this." He talks real short and sharp.
Yeah, he's got like a little squiggly around his word bubbles that make you think that it's Batman speaking, or something. Like it gives him a different voice.
That's a good call. Yeah, they do a good job with the dialogue, giving a little bit of character to the letters and to the bubble, which is something that more comics should do.
Yeah, let you know that's spoken differently.
Take advantage of every part of the medium.
Mm-hmm. And these guys have history as well. So yeah, Rorschach has his mask like pulled up to his nose so he can, get the food into his mouth. I think that's pretty cool looking. Anyhow, they have a back and forth, and this is where we're revealed as to who the victim of being pushed out the window.
The guy got thrown out the window. They call him the comedian. Now, at the same time, Rorschach's doing something weird that I kind of wanted to ask you about. So
Oh,
it looks
what-
like he takes out